A desperate little girl runs out crying to a garbage collector, frantically pointing towards her house. Minutes later, police cars swarm in and shut down the entire street. What the frightened child confesses to the garbage man would turn his ordinary morning route into a nightmare, uncovering something that had remained hidden for far too long. Before we dive in, comment where you're watching from, and if you like these stories, don't forget to subscribe. Marcus Taylor guided his garbage truck through the quiet streets of a suburban neighborhood, the morning sun casting long shadows across manicured lawns and well-maintained homes. He glanced at the dashboard clock, 8:20 a.m., nearly 35 minutes behind his usual schedule. The delay weighed on him, a constant reminder that his precise routine had been disrupted by his partner's sudden illness and the lack of a replacement. As he maneuvered the large vehicle alone, Marcus reflected on his 2 years of service. His movements were practiced and efficient despite working solo, demonstrating the expertise gained from countless early mornings on these familiar streets. The Brightwood neighborhood stretched before him, its pristine appearance a stark contrast to his utilitarian vehicle. Marcus took pride in his work, understanding the vital role he played in keeping the community clean and functioning. He knew every street, every turn, and even the habits of many residents along his route. It was this familiarity that made the morning's delay all the more frustrating. He prided himself on his punctuality and efficiency, and today's setback gnawed at his professional pride. As he approached the next house on his route, Marcus spotted a woman and a girl stepping out of their car and walking to their home. He knew them well after all these years of working every day and collecting their rubbish. The woman, Rachel, and her daughter Lucy were familiar faces in his daily routine. Normally, Marcus would exchange friendly greetings with the residents he encountered. It was a small gesture that made his job more enjoyable and helped foster a sense of community. Today, however, something felt off. As Rachel and Lucy made their way to their front door, Marcus called out his customary warm, "Good morning." The response he received was unusual and unsettling. Lucy kept her head down, avoiding eye contact entirely. Rachel managed only a brief tense, "Hi, morning." The interaction lacked their usual warmth and friendliness, leaving Marcus with a sense of unease. As he returned the neighbor's bin to its original spot, Marcus's mind processed the strange interaction. Though concerned by their unusual behavior, Lucy's downcast demeanor and Rachel's rushed manner nagged at his conscience. He tried to remind himself that everyone has difficult days, and he shouldn't take it personally. Perhaps they were running late for urgent situation, or maybe they were dealing with some private family matters. Marcus kept convincing himself not to think too much of it as he moved to collect their bin next. After all, it wasn't his place to pry into the lives of the residents he served. His job was to collect the trash and move on, maintaining a professional distance while still being friendly and approachable. As he lifted Rachel and Lucy's bin, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. The weight of the bin felt different, heavier than usual. He chalked it up to his imagination, a result of the morning's disrupted routine and the strange interaction moments ago. With practiced ease, Marcus maneuvered the bin towards the truck's mechanical arm. As he did so, he caught sight of his reflection in the vehicle's side mirror. The dark circles under his eyes were a testament to the early mornings and long hours his job demanded. But there was also a determination in his gaze, a pride in the essential service he provided to the community. As Marcus operated the controls to empty Rachel's bin into the truck, something caught his eye. A loosely tied trash bag shifted, its contents becoming partially visible. What he saw made him pause, his hand hovering over the controls. Brand new children's clothes with tags still attached. A complete school outfit, backpack, and unused school supplies were piled on top of new toys. The discovery stopped him in his tracks, his usual professional detachment giving way to curiosity and concern. Marcus stood by the truck, weighing his options. His schedule was already behind, and he typically maintained strict professional boundaries about residents' discarded items. It wasn't his place to question what people threw away. Yet the waste of new items troubled him, especially knowing about donation centers in the area. He thought of the children in the slum near his home who could benefit from such items. As he contemplated the situation, Marcus's mind raced with possibilities. Why would Rachel throw away brand new items? It seemed so wasteful, so out of character for the family he thought he knew. He wondered if they were aware of the donation drop-off points where other people could benefit from these things. It would be a shame to discard them, he thought. The internal debate continued as Marcus stood there, torn between his professional duties and his personal ethics. On one hand, he had a schedule to maintain and rules to follow. On the other, he couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. The strange behavior of Rachel and Lucy earlier, combined with this unusual discovery, painted a picture that didn't sit well with him. After careful consideration, Marcus made a decision. He stopped the mechanical arm before it could destroy the items. With a sense of purpose, he retrieved the bag from the bin. Despite his delayed schedule, he decided to approach Rachel's door. This choice represented a significant departure from his usual protocol, driven by both concern and a desire to prevent unnecessary waste. As he walked up the driveway, bag in hand, Marcus rehearsed what he would say. He didn't want to overstep or make Rachel uncomfortable, but he felt compelled to at least offer information about donation centers. His knocks initially went unanswered, but persistence brought results. After he rang twice, the door finally opened. Rachel appeared, and Marcus was taken aback by her appearance. She looked notably disheveled, a marked change from her usual composed demeanor. In fact, she looked even messier than when he had seen her just moments ago outside. The transformation was striking and unsettling. "Mrs. Harper," Marcus began, his voice gentle and apologetic, "I'm sorry to disturb you, but I couldn't help noticing these items in your trash." He held up the bag, its contents partially visible. "I don't mean to pry into your privacy, but I happened to see the contents because the bag was loosely tied. I thought you might not be aware of the donation drop-off points in our area where these items could benefit others." Rachel's reaction was unexpectedly hostile. Her eyes narrowed and her voice took on a sharp edge. "It was no mistake," she snapped. "What I decide to throw away is none of your business. How dare you go through our trash?" Marcus was taken aback by her anger. He tried to explain further. "I apologize if I've overstepped. I just thought—" But Rachel cut him off. "If you want them so badly, take them. Just leave us alone." Her voice trembled slightly, a mix of anger and something else. Fear, perhaps. Just as Rachel moved to close the door, a loud crash echoed from within the house. The sound of shattering glass made both Marcus and Rachel flinch. They quickly looked inside, and for a brief moment, Marcus caught a glimpse of fear crossing Rachel's face before she slammed the door shut. Marcus stood there, stunned by the turn of events. The uneasy feeling he had earlier now blossomed into full-blown worry. Something was clearly wrong here, but what could he do? He lingered momentarily, debating whether to call the authorities. The subsequent silence from within the house moments later left him uncertain. Finally, Marcus returned to his truck, his mind racing with conflicting thoughts. He still didn't feel right about destroying the brand new items, so he placed the rescued bag in the cab rather than throwing it in the back. As he climbed into the driver's seat and started the engine, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that he was leaving something unresolved behind him. As he drove to the next house, Marcus's professional training battled with his personal instincts. He had a job to do, a schedule to maintain. But the image of Rachel's fearful face and the sound of breaking glass haunted him. He found himself glancing back at Rachel's house in his rearview mirror, wondering if he should have done more, said more, or somehow tried to help. The weight of the rescued items in the cab seemed to grow heavier with each passing moment, a physical reminder of the moral dilemma he now faced. As Marcus continued his route, he couldn't help but feel that this ordinary Tuesday morning had suddenly become anything but ordinary. Working house to house, Marcus methodically continued his route despite his lingering unease. The familiar motions of his job, lifting bins, operating the truck's mechanical arms, returning empty containers to their spots, provided a semblance of normalcy. But his mind remained troubled by the earlier encounter with Rachel. As he reached a house 5 doors down from Rachel's, the rhythmic barking of a neighbor's dog behind a fence provided background noise. Marcus lifted another bin, his movements automatic while his thoughts drifted back to the strange events of the morning. The weight of the bin, the smell of the trash, the sound of the truck's engine. All these familiar sensations seemed somehow different today, colored by his worry and confusion. Without warning, a small figure darted out from between two parked cars. Before Marcus could fully register what was happening, Lucy appeared and clung to his leg. Her sudden presence startled him mid-task, and he struggled to balance the large trash bin in his arms, while a child wrapped herself around his lower body. Marcus carefully set down the bin, his heart racing from the surprise. He paused the mechanical arms of the truck and removed his work gloves, crouching down to Lucy's eye level. It was then that he got a good look at her. She was dressed in a pristine blue floral dress, as if prepared for an outing, but her tearful face and trembling form suggested deep distress. "Please help," Lucy pleaded, her voice breaking through the morning quiet. She pointed toward her house, her small hand shaking as she did so. Marcus's professional demeanor softened as he faced the clearly distraught child. His movements were deliberate and gentle as he examined her for visible injuries, finding none despite her obvious distress and tears. The continued barking from the nearby yard added to the tension of the moment, a cacophonous backdrop to this unexpected scene. "Lucy, what's wrong?" Marcus asked gently, trying to keep his voice calm and reassuring. "Are you hurt? Where's your mum?" But Lucy's emotional state only intensified at his questions. Her tears prevented coherent explanation, leaving Marcus struggling to understand the situation while trying to comfort the clearly terrified child. He began walking her back toward her house, hoping to find Rachel and get to the bottom of what was happening. Lucy resisted, pulling back against Marcus's gentle guidance. Her fear was palpable, and it only deepened Marcus's concern. What could have happened in the short time since he'd left their house to make Lucy so afraid? As they walked, Marcus tried again to communicate with Lucy. "It's okay, sweetie. You're safe. Can you tell me what happened? Did something scare you?" Lucy's response was a mix of hiccups and sobs, her words barely intelligible. "Dad. Mum. Scared." Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. The pieces were starting to come together. The new clothes in the trash, Rachel's disheveled appearance, the sound of breaking glass, and now Lucy's terror. Something was very wrong in that house. They were about halfway back to Lucy's home when Marcus heard a door slam. He looked up to see a man emerging from the house, his stride purposeful and aggressive. Marcus instinctively positioned himself between the approaching figure and Lucy, his protective instincts kicking in, despite his uncertainty about the situation. As the man drew closer, Marcus could see that he was tall and well-dressed in an expensive custom suit, creating a stark contrast to Marcus's work uniform. The man's face was contorted with anger, his eyes fixed on Lucy cowering behind Marcus. As the man drew closer, he called out in a commanding voice, "What are you doing with my daughter?" His tone was accusatory, laced with barely contained anger. The little girl's grip on Marcus's leg tightened, her small body trembling against him. Marcus, trying to maintain a calm demeanor, responded evenly, "Sir, your daughter approached me. She seems upset. I was just trying to help." But the man cut him off, his demeanor shifting from threatening to condescending as he took in Marcus's garbage collector uniform. "Help? What could someone like you possibly do to help?" The father's prejudice became immediately apparent through his next words. "You have no business interfering with my family. Know your place, garbage man." The verbal assault continued, each word dripping with disdain. "I suppose picking up trash is all someone with your limited intelligence could manage. Did you even finish high school, or were you too busy getting into trouble?" Marcus felt his jaw clench, the sting of the man's words hitting him hard. He had faced prejudice before, but rarely so blatant and cruel. He was acutely aware of Lucy still hiding behind him, her small hands clutching at his uniform. The father's tirade escalated. "I should call your employer right now. Better yet, I'll call the police. How dare a black criminal like you touch my daughter? Stop sticking your nose in other people's family matters." Marcus struggled internally with his response. Every instinct in his body screamed at him to defend himself, to shout back at this man and his unfounded accusations. But he was acutely aware of how his reaction could be perceived. Lucy was still with him, and if he were to lose his temper or try to physically confront the man, it would only paint an uglier picture. Despite the father's provocative behavior, Marcus forced himself to remain calm. He recognized that any aggressive response would only reinforce racist stereotypes and potentially worsen the situation for Lucy. He took a deep breath, trying to center himself. "Sir," Marcus began, his voice steady despite the turmoil inside him, "I understand you're upset, but your daughter came to me asking for help. I'm just trying to make sure she's okay." The father scoffed. "She doesn't need help from the likes of you. Lucy, come here now." He reached out to grab Lucy's arm, but she shrank back, pressing herself closer to Marcus. Marcus felt torn. He knew he had no legal right to keep Lucy from her father, but every instinct told him something was wrong. With great reluctance, he turned to Lucy and crouched down to meet her eyes, his voice heavy with regret. "Lucy, I'm sorry, I can't protect you. I have a job to do and your father is right. I don't have any authority here." The words felt like ash in his mouth, each one breaking his heart a little more. "You should go home with your dad, okay?" Lucy looked up at him, her eyes wide with fear and betrayal. As the father reached for her again and shoved her forward to walk back into the house, she suddenly broke free and ran back towards Marcus, who was about to climb into his truck cab. "Please," Lucy cried out, her voice filled with desperation. "Don't make me go back. I'd rather die than go home with him. My dad is bad." Marcus froze, his hand on the truck door. The shocking statement from such a young child sent a chill down his spine. He realized that his initial instincts were right. No child should ever feel so desperate and afraid of their own parent. In that moment, Marcus knew he couldn't walk away. The red flags were waving furiously now, and Marcus understood that this situation was far more serious than he had initially thought. As he stood there with Lucy clinging to him and her father glaring daggers, Marcus knew that his next actions would be crucial. Whatever the consequences, whatever the risk to his job, he couldn't abandon this child who had placed her trust in him. Marcus took a protective stance as Lucy huddled behind him, his posture firm but non-threatening. He was acutely aware of the delicate balance he needed to maintain, protecting Lucy while not overstepping his legal boundaries or provoking her father into violence. The father advanced again, his face contorted with rage. "You have no right to interfere. Give me my daughter now, or I swear I'll have you arrested." Marcus raised his hands in a placating gesture, his voice calm but firm. "Sir, please stay back. You're scaring your daughter. Let's talk about this calmly." The man's eyes narrowed dangerously. "Talk? There's nothing to talk about. I'm calling the police right now. You'll lose your job for this, you piece of trash." As the father reached for his phone, Marcus made a split-second decision. "Go ahead and call them," he said, his voice steady. "But I want you to know that I'm going to call child services. I suspect something is wrong inside your house because your daughter is terrified." The mere mention of child services caused a visible shift in the father's demeanor. His face paled, and for a moment, the aggressive facade cracked, revealing a flicker of fear. He took a step back, his hand dropping away from his phone as he ended the phone call and paced back to his home. Marcus felt a fleeting sense of triumph, but the problem was far from resolved. What was he supposed to do with the girl? With her father still in the house, taking her wasn't an option. As he wrestled with his next move, his deliberation was cut short. Just as he began turning toward Lucy, intending to demand an explanation, the front door of the house burst open with a resounding bang. The scene that unfolded before Marcus's eyes was nothing short of horrifying. The father emerged once more, but this time he was dragging a woman, Rachel. Her condition made Marcus's blood run cold. Her face was severely bruised and swollen, with only one eye able to open. Though she couldn't speak, her visible eye pleaded silently for help as her husband forced her towards his car. Marcus stood frozen for a split second, the shock of the situation paralyzing him momentarily. He had suspected something was wrong, but the reality was far worse than he had imagined. Before he could intervene, the father had shoved Rachel into the car and was speeding away, tires screeching on the pavement. Lucy's terror now took on new meaning as she tugged at Marcus's sleeve, urging him to save her mother. "Please," she sobbed, "don't let him hurt Mommy anymore." Marcus, still reeling from what he had just witnessed, knelt down beside Lucy. "Lucy, I need you to tell me everything that's happening. Can you do that for me?" The little girl seemed too shaken to form coherent sentences, her body trembling with fear and adrenaline. Marcus, realizing he needed to approach this differently, softened his voice. "If it's too hard to tell, maybe you can show me." Lucy nodded, her small hand gripping Marcus's work-roughened one as she led him towards the house. Despite his professional obligations, Marcus knew he couldn't ignore such clear signs of domestic violence. He had crossed a line, but there was no going back now. As they approached the front door, Marcus's senses were on high alert. He could hear the faint sound of glass crunching under their feet, and an acrid smell wafted from the open doorway. Standing in the threshold, Marcus absorbed the scene before him, his heart sinking with each detail he noticed. The interior told a story of violence that words couldn't fully capture. Broken glass and wooden splinters littered the floor, creating a hazardous path through what should have been a warm family home. Shattered picture frames lay strewn about, their happy family photos now marred by cracks and missing pieces. Splintered chairs created an obstacle course of destruction, evidence of a violent struggle. What drew Marcus's attention the most were the trampled suitcases near the door, their contents strewn across the floor. Clothes, toiletries, important documents. The scene spoke of an interrupted escape or a hurried departure, and it made Marcus's heart ache for Rachel and Lucy, stirring a deep yearning to uncover the full story behind it all. Marcus turned to Lucy, who stood silently beside him, her small hand still clutching his. "Lucy," he said gently, "I can only help you by calling the police. Is that okay?" The little girl nodded, her eyes wide with a mixture of fear and hope. With Lucy's permission, Marcus pulled out his phone and dialed 911. As he waited for the operator to answer, he took a deep breath, steeling himself for what was to come. He knew that his actions today would have far-reaching consequences, not just for Lucy and Rachel, but for himself as well. But as he looked down at the frightened child beside him, he knew without a doubt that he was doing the right thing. When the operator answered, Marcus's voice was steady despite the chaos around him. Years of maintaining composure during his route helped him relay crucial information clearly and concisely. He provided a detailed account of both the violent scene before him and Rachel's abduction, emphasizing the urgency of the situation. As he spoke, Marcus kept a protective arm around Lucy, acutely aware of the trauma she had endured and the bravery she was showing. He silently vowed to see this through to the end, no matter what it might cost him personally. The garbage route, his job, his own safety, all of it paled in comparison to the importance of keeping this child safe and reuniting her with her mother. The wail of police sirens pierced the morning air, growing louder as they approached the house. Within minutes, several patrol cars pulled up, their lights flashing. Officers quickly secured the scene, their presence bringing some order to the chaos that had erupted in this quiet suburban neighborhood. Lucy refused to enter the house, clinging tightly to Marcus, who stayed with her outside while police investigated. The little girl's eyes darted nervously between the officers and the house, as if expecting her father to reappear at any moment. An officer, a kind-faced woman with graying hair at her temples, stepped outside to talk to them. She crouched down to Lucy's level, her voice gentle as she introduced herself. "Hi, Lucy. I'm Officer Sarah. Can you tell me what happened?" Lucy's lower lip trembled as she spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "Dad took Mum. He hurt her really bad. I'm scared I'll never see her again." She paused, her small hands clenching into fists. "He's worse than a monster. He can hurt her really, really badly." The officer's face grew serious as she listened. She turned to Marcus, who quickly filled her in on what he had witnessed: the father's aggressive behavior, Rachel's visible injuries, and their hasty departure. "Thank you for calling us, sir," the officer said to Marcus. She then spoke into her radio, updating her team about the father taking the injured mother. Turning back to Marcus and Lucy, she added, "We're closing off the surrounding streets. This will help us catch him faster. Can you provide the vehicle's make, model, or license plate, along with any physical description of him?" Marcus took a deep breath, trying to recall the details. "It's a dark blue sedan, an older model. I didn't catch the license plate, but the front bumper is dented on the left side. As for him, he's about 6 feet tall, medium build, wearing a black formal suit and a long pant. He's got short, sleek hair and a beard. That's all I can remember." As more officers emerged from the house, their faces grim, the kind officer continued to gently question Lucy. "Sweetie, can you tell me more about what's been happening? Has your dad hurt your mum before?" Lucy nodded, her eyes filling with tears again. In her simple child language, she revealed more details: her father's alcoholism, the divorce he refused to accept, and his pattern of returning to their house to terrorize them. "He gets really mad when he drinks," she said, "and he drinks a lot." The officer nodded sympathetically, jotting down notes. "Lucy, is there anyone else your dad might want to hurt? Do you have any brothers or sisters?" Lucy shook her head, but then her eyes widened with a new worry. "Grandma," she exclaimed. "She lives nearby, just a few blocks from here, and this morning we've just returned from her house. What if Dad goes there?" The officer immediately relayed this information to her colleagues. The police team quickly split their forces, some remaining to secure the crime scene, while others, led by a senior officer, prepared to check on the grandmother. "Lucy," the senior officer said, kneeling down to her level, "we need to go check on your grandma. Will you come with us? You can help us find her house." Lucy hesitated, looking up at Marcus with fear in her eyes. She had latched onto him as a source of safety and was reluctant to leave his side. Marcus, sensing her distress, made a quick decision. "I'll follow in my garbage truck," he said, addressing both Lucy and the officers. "I know I still have a job to finish, but I can't leave Lucy now. I promise I'll see this case through to its end." The officers exchanged glances, clearly surprised by the garbage collector's dedication. After a moment, they nodded in agreement. Lucy, reassured by Marcus's promise, finally agreed to get into the police car. As Lucy climbed into the back seat of the patrol car, Marcus jogged back to his garbage truck. He knew he was far behind on his route now, and that there would likely be consequences for his actions today. But as he started the engine and fell in line behind the police vehicles, he felt a sense of purpose that transcended his daily duties. A small convoy formed, police vehicles in the lead with Lucy safely inside, followed by Marcus in his garbage truck. Though an unusual sight, the impromptu parade moved quickly through the neighborhoods, each participant driven by urgency to prevent another potential victim. As they drove, Marcus's mind raced. He thought about Rachel, hoping she was safe and that the police would find her soon. He worried about Lucy, thrust into a terrifying situation no child should ever have to face, and he couldn't help but think about the consequences his actions today might have on his job and his life. But as he followed the flashing lights of the police cars, weaving through the suburban streets he knew so well, Marcus felt a deep conviction that he was doing the right thing. Whatever came next, he knew he couldn't have lived with himself if he had turned a blind eye to Lucy's plea for help. As the convoy of police vehicles and Marcus's garbage truck rounded the corner into the grandmother's cul-de-sac, an intense scene was already unfolding. The father's car was haphazardly parked in the driveway, one wheel up on the lawn. On the porch stood the father, his expensive suit now rumpled, and his face contorted with rage as he shouted demands. "Open the door," he bellowed, his voice carrying across the quiet neighborhood. "I know you have the passports. Give them to me now, or I swear I'll break this door down." Marcus could see Rachel still trapped in the car, her condition appearing even weaker than before. Her head lolled against the window, and even from a distance the bruising on her face was evident. The commotion had drawn curious neighbors from their homes, creating an audience to the unfolding drama. Some stood on their lawns, whispering to each other, while others peered out from behind curtains. A few bolder individuals had their phones out, recording the scene. The father, noticing the growing crowd, turned his anger on them. "Mind your own business," he snarled. Grabbing a small decorative rock from the garden, he hurled it in the direction of the onlookers, causing them to scatter and retreat. As police sirens pierced the air, the father's demeanor changed from aggressive to panicked. He darted back to his car, clearly intending to flee with Rachel still inside. Marcus, thinking quickly, made a split-second decision. He accelerated his garbage truck, maneuvering the large vehicle to block the driveway, effectively trapping the father's car between his truck and the approaching police vehicles. The screech of tires filled the air as police cars surrounded the house, officers pouring out with weapons drawn. "Step out of the vehicle with your hands up," an officer commanded through a megaphone. For a tense moment, it seemed the father might try to ram his way out, but the sight of multiple officers with guns trained on him seemed to deflate his bravado. Slowly, he opened the car door and stepped out, his hands raised. As the police moved in to apprehend him, the father's eyes landed on Marcus, who had stepped out of his truck. "You," he spat, his face twisting with hatred. "This is all your fault, you nosy piece of trash. I'll ruin you for this. You'll never work in this town again." Officers quickly pulled the raging man away, protecting Marcus from his verbal assault, but the garbage collector couldn't help but feel a chill at the man's threats. He knew that his actions today, while morally right, could indeed have serious consequences for his career and life. Just then, Lucy emerged from the police car, her small face a mixture of relief and fear as she took in the scene. When she spotted her mother still in the car, she broke away from the officer holding her hand and ran towards the vehicle, desperately knocking on the window. "Mommy! Mommy, are you okay?" Rachel stirred slightly at her daughter's voice but seemed too weak to respond. An officer gently pulled Lucy back, explaining that paramedics would help her mother soon. As Lucy was led away from the car, her father's demeanor suddenly shifted. The aggressive, threatening man from moments ago crumbled, falling to his knees on the lawn. Tears streamed down his face as he called out, "Lucy, baby, please, Daddy loves you. This is all a big misunderstanding." Marcus felt a wave of conflicting emotions. Part of him wanted to believe in the sincerity of the man's tears, to hope that there was still a loving father somewhere beneath the violence and anger. But the image of Rachel's battered face and Lucy's terror were burned into his memory. He reminded himself that abusers often used emotional manipulation as a tactic. The police seemed equally torn, their faces a mixture of skepticism and uncertainty as they dealt with the now weeping man. They maintained their professional demeanor, securing him in handcuffs despite his pleas and tears. Meanwhile, other officers had retrieved the car keys from the resistant father and were finally freeing Rachel from the vehicle. Marcus, with Lucy at his side, moved to help escort Rachel to the porch. The little girl clung to his hand, her eyes never leaving her mother's face. As they reached the porch, the front door opened, revealing an older woman who could only be Lucy's grandmother. Her face was etched with worry and fear, but it softened with relief at the sight of her daughter and granddaughter. "Oh, thank God," she breathed, rushing forward to embrace Rachel. She guided them to a seating setup in the porch, where Rachel collapsed onto a nearby chair. The grandmother quickly brought a glass of water and some ice wrapped in a towel for Rachel's swollen face. Lucy remained protectively close to her mother, her small hand resting on Rachel's arm as if to reassure herself that her mum was really there and safe. Marcus stood nearby, feeling both relieved that the immediate danger had passed and uncertain about what would happen next. As Rachel sipped the water, color slowly returning to her face, Marcus couldn't help but feel a mix of emotions. Relief that Rachel and Lucy were safe, anger at the abuse they had suffered, and a gnawing worry about the repercussions he might face for his involvement. The atmosphere in the grandmother's porch became heavy with unspoken truths. Rachel, now more alert after drinking water and being tended to by her mother, sat on the outdoor rattan chair with Lucy curled protectively against her side. Marcus stood nearby, feeling like both an intruder and a necessary presence in this family moment. An officer approached the porch to take Rachel's statement. Introducing himself as Officer Johnson, his kind eyes and calm demeanor stood in sharp contrast to the violence they had all just experienced. "Mrs. Harper," he began, his voice soft but professional, "I know this is difficult, but we need to fully understand what happened. Can you tell us about your relationship with your husband?" Rachel took a deep breath, wincing slightly at the pain it caused her bruised ribs. As her strength returned, she began to reveal their history, a tale that unfolded like a tragedy in slow motion. "We've been married for 8 years, Rachel started, her voice barely above a whisper. At first, everything was perfect. Dennis was charming, successful, and seemed like the ideal husband and father. She paused, stroking Lucy's hair absently. But things changed. His success in business paralleled his descent into addiction. The stress of running his business empire led him to start drinking heavily. Rachel's voice grew stronger as she continued, as if unburdening herself of these long-held secrets gave her strength. It started with verbal abuse, put-downs, controlling behavior, isolating me from friends and family. Then came the physical intimidation, throwing things, punching walls. I kept making excuses, believing he would change. Lucy sniffled quietly and Rachel hugged her closer. The final straw came 3 years ago. Lucy witnessed one of his violent outbursts. I knew then that I had to leave, for her sake if not my own. We got divorced, but Dennis, he couldn't accept it. Officer Johnson nodded encouragingly, jotting notes in his pad. And since the divorce? Rachel's eyes filled with tears. He struggled to accept our separation. He shows up unannounced, asserting control over me and Lucy. I got a restraining order, but... She gestured to her bruised face. You can see how much that mattered to him. He believes his wealth and influence can shield him from consequences. The officer's face hardened slightly at this. No one is above the law, Mrs. Harper. Can you tell us about what led to today's events? Rachel nodded, taking another sip of water before continuing. Last week, Dennis begged for one last chance. He said he had visited a psychiatrist and suddenly came up with the idea of a family holiday to repair our relationship. He showed up early this morning, but I caught him already half drunk and smelling of alcohol. She paused, her hand trembling slightly as she set down the glass. I knew then that nothing had changed. While he was still asleep, I quickly secured Lucy's and my passports at my mother's house here. That's when... Rachel took a shaky breath before continuing. That's when Marcus saw and greeted me earlier. When I returned home, Dennis had woken up, hungover and angry. He became furious when he learned that I no longer wanted to continue with the family trip overseas because he was drunk. He got drunk again and became violent when he knew our passports were missing. Her voice broke as she recounted the next part. He said he would take Lucy, and that the passports didn't matter because he has connections that can make her disappear. But thanks to Marcus, he didn't manage to take her. So instead he... Rachel gestured to her battered face, unable to finish the sentence. Officer Johnson's face was a mask of professional calm, but his eyes betrayed his anger at the situation. Thank you, Mrs. Harper. Your bravery in sharing this will help us build a strong case against your ex-husband. Just then, Dennis's voice could be heard from the street, loud and insistent. This is all a misunderstanding. What she said isn't true. The officer excused himself and descended from the porch to the street. Marcus watched as he spoke firmly to Dennis, who remained in handcuffs and guarded by other officers, but seemed to have regained some of his earlier swagger. Dennis's voice carried through the open air. We were divorced, yes, but I never beat her. I just wanted a family trip. Rachel is the one who hid the passports and threw away my gifts. She just doesn't like seeing me bond with Lucy. Rachel's face paled, but she remained silent. Marcus felt a surge of anger at Dennis's audacity. He stepped forward, addressing the officer. Sir, if I may, I can provide witness testimony. I saw Mr. Harper's racist behavior towards me and Lucy's extreme fear of him, and there's something else. He explained about the brand new items he had rescued from the trash bin earlier that morning. Mrs. Harper, is it true that your husband brought all those new things? The new school uniform and backpack for Lucy? Rachel nodded, her eyes widening with realization. Yes, it's true. Dennis brought all those new things. The school uniform and backpack were for Lucy because he intended to take her and move her to a new school somewhere I didn't know about. Detective Johnson's eyebrows raised at this new information. Mr. Taylor, Marcus supplied. Marcus Taylor. Mr. Taylor, your testimony could be crucial in this case. We'll need you to come down to the station to give a formal statement. Just then, another officer entered the porch. We've conducted a breathalyzer test on Mr. Harper. He's well over the legal limit. The detective nodded grimly. That settles it. We're taking him in on multiple charges: driving under the influence, domestic abuse, violating a restraining order, and attempted kidnapping. As the officer left to finalize the arrest, Detective Johnson turned back to Rachel and Lucy. "Mrs. Harper, we'll need you and Lucy to come down to the station as well to give your statements. Is there someone who can accompany you?" Rachel's mother stepped forward. "I'll go with them, of course." The detective nodded approvingly. Then he turned to Marcus. "Mr. Taylor, we appreciate your involvement in this case. Your actions today potentially saved 2 lives. However, I understand you were on duty when this occurred." Marcus nodded, suddenly remembering his abandoned route and the likely consequences he would face. "Yes, sir. I should probably contact my company and explain the situation." As the group prepared to leave for the police station, Marcus couldn't help but feel a mix of emotions. Relief that Rachel and Lucy were safe, pride in knowing he had done the right thing, but also anxiety about what this would mean for his job and his future. As he followed the police cars in his garbage truck, heading towards an uncertain future, Marcus knew that regardless of the consequences, he would make the same choice again in a heartbeat. The police station was alive with activity as officers processed Dennis's arrest, and a detective worked on finalizing the statements from Rachel, Lucy, and Marcus. The trash bag containing various items had been secured by law enforcement as evidence. The harsh glow of fluorescent lights and the sterile institutional walls stood in stark contrast to the quiet suburban streets where Marcus's day had begun, a stark reminder of how drastically everything had shifted in just a few hours. Rachel sat in a chair holding an ice pack to her face, with Lucy curled up next to her. Eleanor, the grandmother, hovered nearby, alternating between comforting words and worried glances at her daughter and granddaughter. Marcus stood a short distance away, feeling somewhat out of place in his work uniform amidst the sea of police officers and detectives. As they waited for the formal finalization to end, Rachel caught Marcus's eye. She motioned for him to come closer, her voice soft but filled with gratitude. "Marcus, I don't even know how to begin thanking you. You put yourself at risk to help us, and you've probably jeopardized your job. I'm so sorry for involving you in our family crisis." Marcus shook his head, a small smile on his face. "Please don't apologize. I'm just glad you and Lucy are safe now. That's what matters most." Rachel's eyes welled with tears. "Still, you didn't have to get involved. Most people wouldn't have." "I've been taking your trash for 2 years," Marcus said, his tone lightening slightly. "But only now do I see you in this state. I couldn't just walk away." A ghost of a smile crossed Rachel's bruised face. "It's not a coincidence that you were a little late than usual today, is it?" Marcus chuckled softly. "You noticed I was late." "Of course," Rachel replied. "I also noticed you were alone without a partner." Marcus nodded, reflecting on the strange twist of fate. "This is the first time I've operated alone without a partner. Everything that happened today, it's hard not to think there was some greater purpose to it all." Rachel's eyes softened. "I'd like to believe that too, that someone was watching over us all." Their conversation was cut short when a detective approached, handing each of them a document to sign their statements. As Rachel and Marcus penned their signatures, Rachel glanced back at Marcus. "When this is all over, when things calm down, I'd like to thank you properly. Maybe dinner?" Marcus, surprised by the offer, nodded. "I'd like that, and please don't hesitate to call if you need anything. Though," he added with a self-deprecating smile, "I hope you never need my help again. It would probably mean dire circumstances given, you are in better financial position than I am." The comment, intended to lighten the mood, succeeded in drawing a genuine laugh from Rachel. It was a small moment of levity in an otherwise heavy situation, a reminder that even in the darkest times, there was still room for human connection and hope. "No, Marcus, we all need each other," Rachel said. As the officer excused them and thanked them for their contributions, Marcus's phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out to see his employer's number flashing on the screen. Taking a deep breath, he answered the call, ready to face whatever consequences his actions today might bring. "Hello, this is Marcus," he answered, his voice steady despite his inner turmoil. "Marcus, this is Sarah from HR," came the response. "We've been trying to reach you. Your truck's GPS shows you're off route, and we've received calls about missed pickups. What's going on?" Marcus took a deep breath and began to explain the morning's events. To his surprise and relief, Sarah's response was understanding rather than punitive. "I see," she said after he finished his account. "That's quite a situation you found yourself in. Finish up at the police station and then complete as much of your route as you can. We'll need to discuss this further when you return to the depot." As the call ended, Marcus felt a weight lift from his shoulders. While he knew there would likely still be consequences for abandoning his route, the initial response gave him hope that his job wasn't necessarily in jeopardy. With the immediate crisis over and the formal statements done, Marcus prepared to resume his interrupted route. As he was about to excuse himself, Lucy came to him, her eyes lighting up when she saw him. "Marcus," she called out, running over to him. "Are you leaving? Can we come with you in your truck?" Rachel, following close behind, looked uncertain. "Oh, Lucy, I don't think—" But Marcus, seeing the hopeful look on Lucy's face, found himself nodding. "If it's all right with your mum, I don't see why not. It might be cramped and smelly, but—" Eleanor, overhearing the exchange, chimed in with a gentle tease. "Well, we can always shower later. And when will you get another chance to ride in a garbage truck, Lucy?" Rachel, seeing her daughter's excitement, finally relented. "All right, if Marcus doesn't mind. It would be nice not to have to call a cab." And so, in an unexpected turn of events, Marcus found himself helping Rachel, Lucy, and Eleanor into the cab of his garbage truck. As they pulled out of the police station parking lot, he couldn't help but marvel at the strange twists and turns this day had taken. The ride back to their neighborhood was filled with a mixture of emotions in the tight, cramped space. Lucy's occasional comments and questions about the truck's operations brought moments of lightness, while Rachel's quiet gratitude and Eleanor's supportive presence filled the cab with a sense of hope rather than fear. As they neared their street, Marcus felt a sense of coming full circle. The day had started with him running late on his route, and now here he was, returning to the same neighborhood under completely different circumstances. When they finally reached Rachel and Lucy's house, now peaceful in the afternoon light, Marcus helped them out of the truck. Before entering their home, Lucy turned and hugged Marcus tightly, a gesture of pure gratitude that touched him deeply. Rachel, her arm around Lucy's shoulders, looked at Marcus with a mixture of gratitude and something else, perhaps a newfound respect or understanding. "Thank you, Marcus," she said softly, "for everything. You truly have the purest heart, serving the community in more ways than one." As Marcus watched them enter their home, Eleanor following close behind, he felt a profound sense of satisfaction. The simple observation about his service to the community resonated deeply, validating not just his actions today, but the dignity of his daily work and its importance to the community's well-being. Climbing back into his truck, Marcus took a moment to reflect on the day's events. He knew that challenges lay ahead, explanations to his employers, possible legal proceedings as a witness, and the potential fallout from Dennis's threats. But as he started the engine and prepared to resume his route, Marcus felt a sense of peace. Whatever came next, he knew he had made a difference today, and that knowledge would carry him through whatever challenges lay ahead. With a deep breath and a determined set to his shoulders, Marcus put the truck in gear and set off to complete his route. The day was far from over, but he faced the remainder of it with a renewed sense of purpose and pride in his work, both as a garbage collector and as a member of his community.